Have you ever wondered what FMFIA is? Well, wait no further. I'm going to tell you what this law is and walk through the main requirements of it. It's a short bill, so it's going to be easy to do. Let's get started. So first, FMFIA is the Federal Managers Financial Integrity Act of 1982. As you'll see here on the screen from Congress.gov, it was sponsored by Representative Brooks from Texas, and it became public law in September 8th, 1982, and it's now Public Law 97255. Helpful tip for any time you're looking up law is that they provide summaries at Congress.gov for each law that's passed, so it's really useful. And here's a summary they have here, but I will go to the actual law and we'll walk through it. So let's get started. So I just clicked on text over here. I had the document teed up. So here you'll see FMFIA. Now it's only 2 pages, so it's going to be pretty easy for us to go through. Let's zoom in a little bit. So the first thing you'll see here is FMFIA amends the Accounting and Auditing Act of 1950. That's good to know. Probably not, useful in your everyday life, but it's good to know. But what are the big things that came of it? Well, I think right here you had your first one. All right, so ensure compliance with the requirements of subsection A3 of the section. Internal accounting and administrative controls of each executive agency shall be established in accordance with standards prescribed by the Comptroller General. Okay, what does that mean? So it's internal controls. Commonly, this is going to be OMB A-123, which is this internal control over financial reporting. They do have operational controls also, but you're probably going to be thinking of internal controls over financial reporting. Next thing I pick up on here is Comptroller General, is establishing the standards. So what you would know these as now is the Green Book, the Standards of Internal Control in the Federal Government. The Comptroller General is the individual who's in charge of the GAO, the Government Accountability Office. Though back here, it might be the Government Accounting Office. It changed its name. You'll scroll down here. It kind of talks about reasonable assurance, obligations and costs for compliance with law. You have funds, property, and other assets are safeguarded against fraud, and revenue and expenditures applicable to agencies. Operations are properly recorded and accounted for. So this is just going back to making sure things are right and correct and there's not fraud happening. Around the time that this law passed, right before GAO actually came out with a report, talked about a number of frauds that were taking place throughout the government, and it really kind of pointed out the fact that these frauds were happening, internal controls were lack, and also that accountability and who's really responsible for that wasn't really clear. So this law is actually a direct response to that. So the next thing, evaluation guidelines. All right, so we already had establishing internal controls, evaluation guidelines. All right, so it's the Director of Office of Management and Budget, which is OMB, which sits in the Executive Office of the President, right? In consultation with the Comptroller General, so GAO, will establish guidelines for evaluation by agencies of their systems of internal accounting and administrative control to determine such systems' compliance with the requirements of paragraphs 1. Okay, so what is this saying? This is saying OMB, Office of Management and Budget, needs to talk with GAO. They need to coordinate and figure out how are they gonna evaluate these controls, right? If you know, OMB Circular A-123 actually is from OMB. It is directing the agencies to establish and manage their internal control system and then report on it and evaluate it. So there you go. Now the third big statement, compliance statement. Now what is this? So starting in December of 1983, each executive agency shall, on the basis of an evaluation conducted in accordance with the guidelines prescribed under paragraph 2, what we just talked about, shall prepare a statement. And what does that statement says? It's that the agency's systems of internal accounting and administrative control fully comply with the requirements of paragraph 1, or such a system doesn't comply. Now, this is you're talking about the assurance statements that we have. The agency, the OMB, the internal control teams at every agency, they're doing their work throughout the year. They're testing controls, they're documenting it, and then it's ultimately the work's filtering up to your agency head, who has to make this pronouncement, right? This statement. See, in the event that the head of the agency prepares a statement described in paragraph 3b, the head of the agency shall include a statement in the report And it has any material weaknesses. Okay, they're just notifying. All right, let's go down further. The statements and reports are required by the subsection shall be signed by the head of each executive agency. If you're curious where you're going to find these today, these are going to be in the annual financial reports, really, of every federal agency, right? Department level now. These are audit reports. You have the financial statements. You'll get the statements from the auditor. Maybe it's their contractor or OIG, but you'll have the assurance statement. This is going to be from the agency head, stating about their internal controls and the state of it. There's a couple caveats right here, which kind of makes sense. If it's secret, it's got to be stay secret, and it's not everything, but that's fine. Okay, and then some amendments. Now, this isn't going to affect most of us, I think, in our everyday life. It talks about appropriations for the Office of Inspector General. Same thing here. Now let's go back down. Agency's accounting system is amended by adding thereof a new sentence. Each annual statement prepared pursuant to the section of this section shall include a separate report on whether the agency's accounting system conforms to the principles, standard, and related requirements prescribed by Comptroller General. So let's just recap what was covered here. So this is once again talking about reporting. So essentially what FMFIA does is it directs GAO to create internal control standards for the federal government. It tells OMB to work with GAO and to devise a way to evaluate internal controls across the federal government. Then it tells every agency head, you're going to have to essentially have a report and let the president and Congress know what's the status of your internal controls at your agency. Are they operating? Or if you have some material weaknesses, what are they? So this is establishing that annual reporting requirement. So you'll see FMFIA a lot of times referenced in some audit findings. You'll see it referenced in internal control findings, obviously, because this is what's kind of based for. But FMFIA is very important. It did create that need for OMB A-123 teams today, internal control over financial reporting, internal control over operations. And this is really where it all began. So next time you see these acronyms, FMFIA, you'd kind of know why. This is the why you're doing it. Why does this team exist? Because like many things in government, it's because it's the law. Hope you found this useful and look forward to creating some more quick hits. Thanks.